Somebody not that long ago asked me, well, it was a long time ago because it's when I had the white drum set. And on my Facebook cover picture, I have a top-down picture of my drum set, this one. I also had one of the white drum set. And this person who doesn't know anything about drums or music asked me, why do you have so many pedals, the foot pedals, and why is there so many cymbals? That's a great question from somebody that doesn't know. That's a really good question. So I'm going to talk about that today. In the picture of the white drum set, I had 3 pedals. It was a double bass pedal and a hi-hat pedal. I had the double bass pedal because that drum set only had 1 bass drum. And a double bass pedal, you can use 2 feet on 1 bass drum. This particular drum set has 2 bass drums, so I still have 2 feet pedals, but now I have 2 separate drums. I don't want to get too much into that because I can't get cameras down here. The room is a lot smaller than it looks on the camera. That's why I don't have foot cameras down here. The other pedal works the hi-hat. This is called a hi-hat. It's a bottom hat and a top hat. It's called a top hat because like a hat. Hello, mate. Hello, ma'am. It's a top hat. Mine are set up a very specific way for the type of music that I play, so you're not going to see these open, but they are open right now. When I push the pedal, they close. So what that's for is for when you're playing, you can go like that. That's what the pedal is doing. It opens and closes. So that's what the pedals do. I'm going to talk about the drums just for a second. The question was not asked about the drums, and we can get into this in another video. So let me say this first about drums and cymbals together. These are percussion instruments. When it comes to percussion, you're talking about, you know, triangles, marimbas. It's not just drums with congas and bongos and different types of drums, steel drum. It's everything. Pianos. When you're talking about percussion, you're talking about this huge, like, there's so many instruments in it. Vibra slap, you know, I mean, there's all kinds of stuff. So the stuff I'm about to talk about, I'm going to give certain facts and then the rest is all opinion. The reason why it's opinion is because when you talk about percussion, and there's so much stuff out there, it comes down to personal preference and what you want to create as far as sound. It's not about drums need to sound this way, cymbals need to sound this way. This is the normal way of doing things. A lot of people that think that way are going to be stuck and they're going to have trouble. Now, I have my stuff a specific way for a reason. That's my own opinion, and we'll get into that in a little bit. But when you're talking about sound, you're talking about sound. And when you're talking about percussion, there's so many sounds. You can't really say what's right and what's wrong because you're talking about personal preference according to certain sounds. So when we're talking about drums themselves, that's a whole other conversation of like the types of wood used, types of heads you can use and not use if you have none on the bottom, types of sticks you use to hit them with, they make different sounds. You can get into this whole long discussion. So we're not going to get into that, but I will say this about my own drum set. They are this way for a specific reason for me and for the music that I want to play and sound like. The same goes for the cymbals that I use. Now, I can't say if you don't use these cymbals, you're not really using, you know, real name brand cymbals. So you can't say that when it comes to percussion. I do have my personal opinions, though, of why I use what I use. So the person asked, why are there so many cymbals? So when it comes to cymbals, there's all kinds of different metal that they use in them. And they all make different types of sounds. There's a lot of things that determine the sound of each cymbal. So this is going to help you drummers too. If you're choosing cymbals, what do you want to choose? So I'm going to start with what I have and then we'll talk about some other things. I was a pasty guy. I say pasty, it's peisty. I was a pasty guy most of my life, but I personally prefer the Zildjians now. I think like I said, this is all going to be opinion. The lowest Zildjian line, I think, is still better than some of the upper name brand lines such as Sabian or Meinl. I've never heard a good Sabian cymbal. I think their best line is HHX, and it's still terrible. Sounds like garbage. Meinl, same thing. I've heard all their different lines. They're garbage. Those are my personal opinions. Zildjian themselves, I know how they're made. I know what they're made of, mostly anyway. And I prefer them for their versatility. If you're playing a certain type of music, you might want a different cymbal. Cymbals, like I like the Brilliance. Brilliant doesn't mean necessarily sound, it means they're shiny. They're shiny. You have dark cymbals, you have organic cymbals, which have a really dry sound. You have actual just dry cymbals. And then you have all the different sizes. What determines the sound of a cymbal? It's not just the metals used. That's a big portion. You have copper, tin, brass. There's a platinum. You can even get some with steel in them. There's so many different combinations that you can get in the cymbal. Now for drummers, I'm going to say this. If you've seen B8s, like Sabian B8s, those are complete trash. They usually come with a beginner set. What most people do is when you buy a drum set like off a marketplace or Craigslist or online somewhere that's not new, it'll usually have B8s on it. And what you normally do if you don't have cymbals, you use those. But with most people, like I already have my own cymbals, I take the B8s, I stick them in the closet. When I go resell that drum set, I put the B8s back on it. Hey, it's a full drum set. And that's exactly what I did with the white drum set when I sold it. It was a complete kit because it had the B8s on it. B8 is a really bad material, and they're also pressed, like the Sabian B8s. Those are pressed, they're not lathed or hammered. Peisty only uses B8, which I think is funny, but these are more quality type of B8. But to get the same sound as you would out of the smaller cymbal, you need to make these bigger. That's why in the old 80s videos, you'll see like 20 and 18-inch cymbals of Peisty 2002s to get that sound. These particular Zildjians that I play with, these are called B20. They get more expensive as you go from B8 to B12 to B16 to B20. B20 is one of the most popular ones used because of the versatility of the sound that comes out of it. Now, B20 just means it's 80% bronze, 20% tin. That's where the 20 comes from. But that's not all the metal that's used in here. It's not just those two. There's a mixture of other metals in here that's a secret. So it's not just the metals that determine the sound, it's the size of the cymbal. But it's not just the size of the cymbal, it's how it's lathed and how it's hammered. Now some are hand hammered and some are machine hammered. It's not only that, the size of the bell, this is called a bell, that also helps determine the sound. If it's a bigger cup, like this is a 16-inch right here, naturally it's gonna have a smaller bell, but it doesn't have to. It could have a bigger cup size and it'll make this sound different. The shape and size of the bell really helps determine a lot of the sound of a cymbal, believe it or not. So this one right here, this is called a ride. A ride is usually thicker and bigger. This one I have specifically because I like the ping, 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 ping. That's all I like. I could have got a ping ride, but they were expensive. I like this black ride. I really love the sound of this just for the ping. I have another ride in there. It's more like a gigantic cymbal. It's like a crash ride. You can do more sounds with it. I don't use it for a lot of things. So I'll show you what I'm talking about on this. These Zildjians right here, these are all A's, just regular A's. I had A Customs. A Customs are thinner and they break. I have these specific ones, first of all, because Andrew bought them. He bought these as a set. I got a lot of these from Josh. and they're set as a specific thing. When you watch a drummer playing, they're not just hitting random cymbals for whatever, like, you know, maybe as a trash ending you would, but they're set in a very specific way for a specific reason. A drummer knows what each sound is coming out of these and hit them accordingly. They're like, when you see me play, I'm hitting a specific cymbal at a specific part. It's not random. I'm always going to hit this on this part and this on this part. There's a reason for that. These are called crashes because you crash on them. These are those cymbals that they just kind of ring out, you know, and then they wash away. This little one is called a splash because it's just a little splash of a bigger version of this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to roll on these to show you what they sound like. And I'm going to have you guys notice something. I have my cymbals set in a specific way so that, because I'm right-handed and I go like this one's going to sound a little bit deeper than this one. This one's going to sound a little bit deeper than this one, and this one's going to sound a little bit deeper than this one. So when I hit them, it's going to go low to high in that pattern, just like that. That's the reason why they are sitting this way. So I'll show you what I'm talking about. We're just going to roll on them. So if you can hear that, you'll hear they went low to high. And then I'll show you what I was talking about when I'm playing, what I'll do. So this one up here is called a splash. It's just a very small, tiny version of these, and it sounds like this. This one over here, it's called a china, because if you flip it over, it looks like a Chinese hat. This is called the effects cymbal. There's tons and tons of effects cymbals. You'll see some that are cut and they look like a spring. You'll see some cymbals have holes in them. In my opinion, I don't like any of that stuff, but every cymbal is made for a very specific reason. I don't use them because I don't have a reason to use those. But chinas are very common in metal and in rock, and I play old rock. So I'm going to hit this and show you guys what it sounds like, and there's different versions of this too. And you don't hit this like all the time. These are like your main things. Your effects cymbals are usually somewhere else like this on the side. So I'll hit this and show you guys what this one sounds like. So I know I'm rambling, but I'm going to show one more thing about cymbals because I said they're not cheap. Now, if you live at home and you're getting cymbals from your parents for Christmas or birthdays, you're not going to care about this. If you play an electronic drum set, you're not going to care about this either, because an electronic drum set, you can just whack the rubber pads. It doesn't matter how you hit them. Metal cymbals matter how you hit them. Now, we hit them with wooden sticks. Now the wood sticks, you're going to see they're all chopped up, and that's from hitting, it's mostly the hi-hat, but it's from hitting the cymbals. You want to hit them with wood. Do not hit these with those ahead metal sticks. They're metal. Now they do have a plastic sleeve on them, but that plastic sleeve is harder than this wood. I would not hit a cymbal with that. I also wouldn't hit these heads with that. I buy my own stuff. I'm an adult. I don't want to break my drum set. So if you play an electronic drum set and you're just whacking it, that's fine. Once you get on an acoustic kit, you cannot just whack your cymbal. You will break it. And if you don't play with wood sticks, you're going to break your cymbals. These are like $350 to $400 each. You don't want to hurt them. These are $400 for this pair right here, the top and the bottom. These are $400. You don't want to break these. They cost a lot of money. So I'm going to show something here that's kind of an illusion of what you're going to see. And on these two cameras right here, you're gonna see me whacking the heck out of this, and I'm smacking these. But then I'm gonna show it from the camera that's up there, and you're gonna see what's really going on. When you play an electronic drum set and you hit them, you can't do that. You can't just whack these. So I'm gonna show this from this camera right here. When I'm hitting cymbals, I'm using this part of the stick, and I'm hitting the curve of the cymbal right here. I'm hitting it more sideways or like this or like this. When I'm smacking these, I'm usually smacking the sides like that. I'm never just smacking it. However, you're only going to see that from up top. When you look at it from these cameras, it's a different angle, and they're positioned there on purpose. It looks like I'm just smacking them, but that's not what's happening. I'll show you. Now you'll see on this camera up top, I'm hitting it right here like this. I'm not hitting it here. But when you look on the other cameras, it looks like I'm just whacking it. So I'll show you how that works on the whole entire drum set. So you'll see from up top, that probably looks a little bit weird, but on these cameras, you can't really tell that. It looks like I'm just hitting them, and it goes by so quick, you don't see that. So I know that was very long-winded. I hope I gave enough information to answer that question of why are there so many cymbals. And I don't think there's a lot of cymbals. I think other people might think so. Terry Bozzio won't. He won't think that's a lot of drums, or pedals. A lot of people have more pedals to control other things. But this is, to me, a standard, somewhat standard setup, not beginner, but somewhat standard for what I play. But I know it was very long-winded. I hope I gave lots of good information for you guys to use. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments. So I hope you enjoyed this video.